Do you have a brilliant young child, but for some reason they continue to be disrespectful and ungrateful for the amazing gifts that you provide in life, and you're stuck as to how to get them to understand the correct behaviors to show gratitude and to be respectful for these gifts? Well, this video is for you. What I've found when it comes to gratitude and respect is it's just like any other skill. It requires time, focus, attention, and consistency. Like anything else on this planet, it's not inbuilt necessarily to every single person that comes into this world. Sometimes it requires training. So what I do is I plan. When I see that my child is looking to obtain something, whether it be a pen or a pencil that another child is possessing at the time and just snatches it off them, they don't realize that they're doing anything wrong. And of course, as parents, we correct them. We go, hey, you can't just do that. And they're not necessarily sure why they can't do that. And it's just because they don't have experience in society and in life, and it's up to us to teach them how to do it. Planning is an incredible way to get yourself ahead of these conflicts because it predicts the things that are going to happen, and you'll be able to counteract them without losing your cool by being empathetic to the scenario and being a great teacher to your child. For those who are a little bit more technical minded, I go into the psychological principles that guide this kind of thing right at the end. So stay tuned for that. I'm also going to reveal the final formula that I actually use with my kids so that both my wife and I get the respect and the admiration that we deserve as hardworking parents. And yes, you too deserve the exact same thing, so make sure you pay attention for that. In addition to that, I know that gaining everything you need to know about love, nurture, respect, and gratitude is such a difficult thing to get out of a short video. So I've compiled a series of exclusive resources, tips, tricks, and tools in my newsletter. Get the link down in the description and join the discussion. So let me guess, you've tried a few things to get your kids to be respectful and grateful, and they failed. But some of those things might be reward charts, giving them challenges and hoping that they succeed so that you can give them the reward. You might even tried punishing poor behavior. You might even have tried bribing them. I feel your pain. We've all been there. But let me tell you, the reason why these things have failed is because the foundations haven't been set. The kids don't necessarily know that they're doing anything wrong when they do it. It's really an autonomous behavior that you're correcting in the moment, and they don't know how to correct it themselves purely based on your feedback. They need you to give them the tools, give them the exact behaviors that they need to exert on different scenarios. For example, the snatching of a pen or a pencil during coloring in time, and they need to understand the repercussions for doing that well. Yes, I said repercussions for doing it well. What I mean by that is repercussions are just the consequences of doing something well or doing something poorly. And this hints on one of the principles that we'll be covering later called operant conditioning. Now, straight out the gate, children are not inbuilt with a manual. They do not have pre-programming that gives them the ability to be respectful and grateful. We've got to teach them. That's the main reason that things aren't going to plan right now. Now, take into consideration our own upbringing. Were we instilled with that sense of gratitude and respect from the get-go? No, we had to learn it as well. And of course, along the way, our parents made mistakes. They taught us things which we've adopted unconsciously, which we're unnecessarily, but inevitably passing on to our kids. So take a step back, just relax, take a breath, and understand that despite your efforts, which might be long-winded, that aren't coming to the point of respect and gratitude that you'd like, that there's room for improvement, and you most certainly can triumph over this challenge. So taking into consideration what we've gone through so far, number one, the child doesn't know that they're doing anything wrong. Then you make them aware, but of course they've practiced this pattern for a period of time now, and you've got to undo that. But because it's ingrained into who they are and what they do, this is going to take some change, which takes a bit of patience, and it's also going to take repetition and consistency. If they're resistant to what you're doing, it might just be that the child-parent attachment isn't as secure as you'd like to be. My little one absolutely loves to be right, and despite the fact that I'm with her in a lot of her tumultuous scenarios, she resists and defies me. That's part of her significance. That's part of what makes her feel like she's being validated. And I frequently have to explain to her, honey, you're actually getting in the way of your own success, your own benefits here. What I'm trying to do is not hold control or power over you, but I'm actually trying to get you the thing that you want. And the remedy for what she wants, which is to remove the pain or remove the conflict, actually lies in a set of exercises that lie in the opposite side of what you're doing. As a result, it isn't too long before she understands the fact that I'm not just trying to boss her around, I'm actually trying to help her, and she decides to give what I'm trying to put forward a go. Other reasons why these kinds of patterns have kept on in your parenting journey is because there is a lack of consistency, a lack of accountability. Maybe you pick up on the problem behavior here and there. Maybe you don't really say anything at all, and now you've decided to get your game in order, and there's resistance to that. So intrinsically, their psychology, their thinking might be, well, it was okay before, and why is it not okay now? Why would I have autonomy in the past, but now all of a sudden that thing that I'm used to doing is a problem? So there's a bit of cognitive dissonance or a bit of confusion going on there. And of course, you've got to take into consideration how long have you really given this a go? And not in the sense of just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks, but actually looking at what works, which we're going to go into very soon, and actually giving it a good go over a long period of time. The longer you've let this pattern of disrespectful and lack of gratitude behavior go on, might necessarily mean that you've got to really invest in a long-term reversal of that behavior. What I find really works is that you talk about the points. You talk about what's going on, you get their point of view. When you get their point of view as to why they're doing what they're doing, they're going to come up with a couple of different options. One of which might be, which is hilarious to think about, I don't really know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that just kind of means that they're working autonomously and in reaction to the stimulus of being threatened. So their threat response comes up despite it not really being a threat at all, and then just pull into the defense mode. When you talk to them and then they realize this, your ability to bring down that defense mechanism and instill a better way through conscious thought is actually on the table. The other thing that's really cool about this is when you let them speak, they actually feel that validation and automatically bring down the threat response. When you allow them to express themselves, they feel like they're important, they feel like they actually have validation and actually has some kind of significance, as opposed to just dictating to them how it's got to be. You want to lead them down the path that brings them to respectful and grateful behavior. And by allowing them to speak, you're going to find out what's truly resonating for them. And then you start to begin your influencing, start to inject the ideas that work more for harmony rather than disharmony. That co-creation process is absolutely priceless. And in the future, when they have another problem that you might not be privy to until they speak about it, they're actually going to be more willing to talk to you, which is something that a lot of children never get the opportunity to do because their parents merely overlay their lens, which is limited in itself, over the problem that they see, and they dictate what needs to happen, as opposed to asking, well, what would you like from this scenario and how would you like to feel? And let's work on a strategy together. Now, once you've had these conversations, I know it sounds crazy to talk to your young child about things of a worldly nature, but guess what? They're actually really intelligent and they do have an awareness, and maybe they don't know how to express it in the same way that adults do because their vocabulary and their experience of life is somewhat more limited. But if you give them the chance and you allow them to express themselves, they'll really surprise you. So once you allow them to express themselves, you can start to create that strategy, and then you can begin to test the strategy by executing it in real life. So let's just say they've got a problem at home where they're just continually fighting with each other, the kids that is, or with a parent, and they just don't know how to calm themselves down. They just don't know how to respect someone's personal space or someone else's property. You begin the conversation. Why are you doing this? It's really likely that they're just lacking attention. They're lacking acknowledgement and validation for them as an individual. You could easily turn around, scream, shout, dictate, or you could actually say, what is it you want? And then when they can voice what they want, you can talk about the best practices for how to do it. And then when the problem comes up in the future, you can go ahead and say, well, remember we talked about this in the past? How about we give that a try right now? This might sound kind of counterintuitive because as the adult, as the parent, you're supposed to be the boss, you're the one in charge, you're the one who makes the thing go, you're the metronome of the household. And giving your child choice in the matter is just merely giving away your power. The truth is, you never lost any power when you do it this way because you're actually the one leading the questions, leading the behaviors. You already know where things are going to head off. You already assessed the limitations, what you're willing to accept and not accept, and the repercussions that come with it. Now, to pull this off, in my view, it's really important to hone in on what triggers your child. In my case, what triggers my youngest is defiance. She absolutely hates it when I tell her no or dictate to her. Sometimes it's necessary because there's time constraints, but more often than not, what she really wants is to be heard. So what really sets her off in a positive way is listening. And when I listen, it makes her feel like she's a real person that has real problems or real issues that need to be talked about. And when she talks about them, she gets it all out and we have a great time together. By discerning that, I have thwarted countless conflicts and challenges that I just didn't need to spend time on. And as a result, we end up having a great time together and not at the expense of everyone else's fun time. Now, of course, being heard isn't the only trigger for people. Some people want just attention. Some people want compliments. Some people want to receive things, stuff. Some people want to be in certain places. All of these are important to know. When you know your child's personality, you can leverage it. So by understanding what makes them tick in a positive and a negative manner, you can discern the negatives and try to avoid them if at all possible and hone in on the positives. And you can use that platform to educate them of the kinds of mannerisms, behaviors, and social constructs that are acceptable. So knowing your triggers are absolutely vital. They can get you into trouble, but simultaneously they can get you out of trouble when it comes to this parenting thing. Once you understand that and you've got your plan of action, you've got the things that you want them to learn, go ahead and execute. But don't just say, oi, go do the dishes. Oi, go clean your room. Oi, go put your laundry out. You've got to understand that they don't necessarily know how to do these things, and being alongside them will make them feel like it's not a punishment, but it's actually a level up in their skill levels of life. And why that's so important is because personally, they're going to feel that secure attachment with you. And secondly, they're going to feel that attachment with their future partners, with their friends. Just imagine, you're setting in stone these foundations that makes them feel like they're loved and nurtured. And then they grow up and they leave the house and they maybe move out with a friend or have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And they're starting to move into society in a functional way. And they understand how to regulate through the different conflicts that come with living in society with other people, and that moves forward into their own children as well. So the knock-on effect here is absolutely massive. Wow, that was a massive journey. So let's do a recap real quick. Step number 1, you want to talk about the symptoms. Talk about what's going on. Hey, little Johnny, that you were really rude to me. You know that I put food on the table every day. I clothe you. I house you. I take you to all the different things. Why is it that you feel that you need to be rude to me? And they might come back with, oh, I didn't know I was being rude. I'm sorry, Mum. Or sorry, Dad. And, you can talk about the corrective actions. Number 2, start to suggest by co-creating a different platform, a different way of doing things. And you say, well, when you talk to me and you want something, firstly, if I'm talking to someone else, don't interrupt me. Just wait your turn real quick. Wait for a moment and say, excuse me, Mum, excuse me, Dad. I just wanted to tell you this, or can I have this, please? Using manners is super important. Why? Because it's a self-respect thing. If you want to interrupt people to get what you want, it basically says, I'm the boss, you don't matter to me, and you're not important. That is not a positive way to interact into society. It's very easy these days because we've lost ourselves in the world of devices, and we've lost the ability to be more warm and open. But let's get back to that. Let's get back to inviting people into our lives, inviting them into our hearts and our minds, inviting them into our personal arenas where we actually connect with each other with the foundations of love and happiness at the crux of that. And the other thing that comes to mind right now is authenticity. It's instead of pretending to be someone and playing a game or pretending to be a certain someone, what about being ourselves and filtering out the people that don't work for us, and not in the sense of prejudice, but in the sense of just knowing that there's a misalignment involved, really having fun with the people that work for you. That's the kind of goal that I'm working towards here. Number 3, execute. Absolutely have the conversation, talk about the struggle points, talk about the things that you want to execute on, and then go ahead and execute on it. Find points throughout the day. So break up the day. Maybe you've got morning, you've got the daytime, and you've got the evening. What during the morning do we need to get done? Well, we need to get up, we need to do our morning routine. So we might do a bit of self-care, we might do a bit of exercise, we might get ready for school, make lunch, these kinds of things. And all throughout, there's going to be some permissions that need to be granted. Like, you want to get the sporting equipment out from the cupboard. Mom, Dad, is it okay if I go grab the sporting equipment? Would you like to play with me? Hey, I'm drawing a picture. Can you come and check out my work? Using manners at the same time really, really helps. And because it's likely, if you're in a family, that there's multiple people having multiple different kinds of interactions at once, using please and thank you is something you want to indelibly imprint in your child's language. So those are the main 3 options that I go to. And why I do that is because it's so simple to remember, it's simple to execute on, and the results speak for themselves. Now, for those more technically minded people, here are the psychological principles that are contained within the content of today's video. Number 1, operant conditioning. What is operant conditioning? Well, it's a fancy term that says the repercussions, positive or negative, are in line with the behavior. So when someone behaves well, they are rewarded for their behavior, typically in a verbal sense, is what I would recommend. The reason for that is there's no reason to externally gratify with stuff. People relate best and find fulfillment with other people. Giving someone a toy, ice cream, some kind of frivolous type of in the moment dopamine stimulating kind of thing is just not the way to go. What you want is to build a secure attachment with you and Bub. By doing that, they will know that when they have a problem, they can come to you and they can talk about it. Simultaneously, when they want to share a point of joy with you, they know that you're actually going to give a shit, which is more important than any form of toy or ice cream or any bullshit like that. Now, going back to the conversation, when they fall short of the markers that you've set out, you have the opportunity to reset that by saying, look, if you want to succeed with the types of behaviors, in this case, it's respect and gratitude. You want to honor the gifts that I've given you, the house, the clothes, the shoes, the cars, the schooling. This is what I require. I require you to take care of your space. That means you clean up your room, you put your clothes in the laundry basket, you make sure you brush your teeth, you make sure you put your towel back on the rack, and you're going to get love and affection from me. That is priceless. That is absolutely priceless. Don't think that you need to validate children with fancy toys or fancy outings. The thing that works absolutely the best for them in instilling a secure attachment is knowing that their parents love them. Now, simultaneously, on the negative side of things, let's just say we're talking about manners, because we're talking about gratitude and respectful behavior today. If they fail to use manners and gratitude, there's some kind of repercussion for that. In my case, what I do, if it happens often enough, I say, look, what I'd like you to do is just take 2 minutes just to think about what's happened right now. And when those 2 minutes are up, I'm going to come and see you. And I'm going to ask you, what have you realized about why you're having to have these 2 minutes out? And more often than not, they realize, you know what, I was actually rude. And this is what I said, and this is the corrective action. Of course, I lead them through a series of questions like, do you understand why I had to give you those 2 minutes to think about what you're doing? And what is it that you understood during your 2 minutes of having that free time by yourself? And what I love about operant conditioning is it's a set of boundaries and expectations which are preset. So when the repercussion, whether it be positive or negative, comes, it's known in advance. When you do that, it gives the children benchmarks to aim for, and that way you know where their level of conscientiousness is, basically their awareness about what they're doing and what they need to do in order to get where they want to be. Now, simultaneously, you can also set the expectations and set the rewards for them. But the thing with that is the children. So you're going to have to guide them through that process, because they're going to go for what children love, and some of the things that children love are not necessarily beneficial. So, for example, if you do well in school, what's a reward for that? Like extra screen time? No. Screen time is not positive on its own. However, if you were using AI or some kind of program to educate yourself or to learn a new skill, then sure, that would actually be really beneficial. Other things like junk food, no, forget that. That's not helpful. That's actually harmful. You don't want to use poor quality rewards as a tool to get them to do the thing that you want, because in the end, getting them to do what they want is not really what they're focused on. They're really focused on the can of Coke or the junk food. That's their reason and motivation for doing the behavior in the first place. What you want them to know is that if I do this, I'm going to get love, respect, admiration from my parent. That's the true reward. And of course, because they're young, they don't understand things like that to the same degree that adults do. We have to start now so that as they grow older, it becomes an instilled normal pattern of behavior, and they pass that on to their kids as well. Now, the second principle psychology that I love within this paradigm is modeling behavior. Number one, it makes the parents rethink the way that they do what they do. And if you come from an authoritarian background like I do, and you've tended to repeat that in your own life, it's such a reflective practice. You start to think, oh my God, raised my voice, said the wrong thing, was dictative. I need to shut that down and I need to start a new way of being. So when you do the thing that you're asking your kids to do, they know there's congruence in your behavior. And when they see congruence, it builds trust. And why that's awesome is because it also leads to compliance. Now, it's not an A plus B equals C scenario. It's not just going to be simple, clear-cut, linear kind of thing. You're going to have to practice this. Sometimes you go to A and then you go, oh, let's go to B. And, oh, no, that didn't work. And you go back to A again, and then goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Your kids are still who they are. They've still got their needs, wants, and desires that may not be as beneficial as the ones you want. They may be counteractive to the goals that you've set for them, and just nurture them through that process by co-creating. But when you model their behavior, they no longer have the opportunity to call you out as to be a hypocrite. When you say, oi, I want you to clean up your room, but when they go in your room and it's an absolute pigsty, and they go, man, my parents are messy as hell. Why do I have to be tidy and they get to be messy? That's congruence. We need congruence. They need to see that we're doing the things that we're telling them to do. If we do that, then they are going to adopt what they do. Environment has a huge impact on what people do. So create the environment by modeling the behavior that you wish to see in them. Now, it's not just about modeling what you want them to do, involve them in it. So if you want them to be tidy with their clothes, do laundry with them. If you want them to be tidy in the kitchen, do the dishes with them, or help them to learn different recipes and cook with them. By doing that, you're also giving them those skills. They're not just going to adopt the behaviors because simply you're doing it. They're going to adopt the behaviors because you're giving them the reps that they need to learn the skills. So having the plan in advance about what you're willing to tolerate and accept in terms of being grateful and showing respectful behavior is absolutely integral. When you do this, you're not surprised when they act out or be disrespectful. In fact, you're prepared and you have the tools at your ready. Conversation, what's going on? co-create, new system, execute the plan of how you want to correct it and what you expect in the future. When you do this, you're going to build a really strong, powerful, encouraging environment for your kids to learn exactly how it is that they need to be in terms of communicating with you, communicating with others, communicating with themselves, and to live a vibrant life. And if you really want to know what kids want, check this video out next.